Criticisms of the government's proposed Elections Act changes have expanded beyond the world of politics. Now a group of 160 university professors and academics have weighed in. They've written an open letter that raises a number of concerns. Let me show you part of what it has to say. We urge the government to heed calls for wider consultation in vetting this bill. While we agree that our electoral system needs some reforms, this bill contains proposals that would seriously damage the fairness and transparency of federal elections and diminish Canadians' political participation. The professors say they are, quote, alarmed by the issues such as the lack of due process and the elimination of voter identification cards. So is this bill undermining Canada's electoral process? Should the government be consulting more Canadians? Let's ask one of the people behind the letter. Yasmin Dawood is an assistant professor of law at the University of Toronto. She specializes in election law. Professor Dawood, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
What motivated a group of 159 professors and academics, now there's more, I understand, to send this open letter?
We're very concerned that the Fair Elections Act undermines the integrity and fairness of the electoral process, so we felt we had to speak up.
What are the key issues that jump out at you?
There are a number of key issues. One of them is the process by which this act is being pushed through Parliament. Another is the problem with Elections Canada's powers being hampered. Another problem is with the vouching and voter identification restrictions. There are other concerns as well involving the expansion of the influence of money in politics, and also the introduction of partisan bias.
Okay, there's a lot of issues there, and we've been covering this a lot. So last week I spoke at a long interview with the Minister of Democratic Reform, Pierre Poilievre, in charge of this bill. Let's talk about one of those issues, vouching. Here's what he said about eliminating the vouching system that Marc Méron, the CEO, says will disenfranchise certain voters. Check this out.
It's his responsibility to administer these vouching procedures, and his agency did a very poor job of it in the last election. 42% of the times when vouching was used, there is a serious irregularity, and those irregularities, as I said earlier, could lead to a vote being invalidated.
Okay, that's what he says. What's your response to his concerns?
I think it's really important to note that there are just a handful of actual cases of fraud. When you look at all the provincial and federal elections. So electoral fraud just isn't an issue when it comes to vouching or voter eligibility. It's true that there are record-keeping errors, but I don't believe, and we as a group don't believe, that people should be disenfranchised just because of record-keeping errors.
Do you think that the minister is misrepresenting the so-called Neufeld report?
I think that the minister is misrepresenting the Neufeld report. Indeed, the author of the Neufeld report, Harry Neufeld, also thinks that the minister is misrepresenting his report. The Neufeld report does not say that vouching or voter information cards should be eliminated. On the contrary, the Neufeld report says that we should enhance the use of voter information cards.
Okay, another issue, the ability to compel testimony, which is what the CEO, Marc Méron, wants. In a letter, your group raises the issue of prosecuting the Election Act. The letter says offenses that the commissioner will not have the power to compel witness testimony. That was a major stumbling block during the robocalls investigation. I asked the minister about that. Here's what he had to say.
The Commissioner of Canada Elections already has the same investigative powers of a police force. Police forces that investigate the most heinous of crimes in the most complex circumstances with the most uncooperative witnesses do not have the power to force people to speak against their will. That being said, they do succeed in securing convictions for those very serious crimes.
He says no reason to give him the power to compel. What do you think?
I think that's wrong. I think the only way that Elections Canada can ensure the fairness of the electoral process is to get to the bottom of electoral fraud, such as the robocalls affair. And the only way to do that is to have people answer his questions, in which case the power to compel witness testimony is very important.
Okay, so there's lots of issues. What are you hoping to accomplish with this letter? Will people appear before the committee hearings in Ottawa?
We would be happy to appear before the committee hearings in Ottawa, but we also want to make clear that there are international and neutral standards by which we can judge elections, and the Fair Elections Act violates these standards in all kinds of ways.
Finally, do you think, if this passes, what do you think the consequence will be?
I think it will significantly undermine democratic institutions in Canada. Canada is a world leader when it comes to the democratic process. Other countries look up to Canada. So I think not only would it have significant consequences domestically for the fairness of elections, but it would also tarnish Canada's reputation around the world.
Has anybody asked you or your group to appear before a committee?
We have not been asked at this point.
Okay, and so the letter's been published. Is this the last of this group, or now that you've got this group of signatures, will there be a next step?
I think our next step is to continue to press for greater consultation with respect to this very important bill. We believe that other people should get involved as well in commenting on this bill. We feel that there's a role for ordinary citizens. We also feel that there has to be more input into the revisions that go into this bill.
You know, some people might ask as they look down the list, and there's a lot of signatures, if there's any political connection. Or any, and I should ask you, are you a party member? Is there an element of partisanship here, or is this, because this is your area of expertise, you're fundamentally concerned about this particular bill?
I'm not a member of any political party. And I believe that the reason we all got together to sign this is because we feel that there are neutral and international standards for electoral integrity, and this bill violates many of those standards.
Yeah.
So it really is about our expertise.
All right. Yasmin Dawood is an assistant professor at law at the University of Toronto. She's an expert in elections laws, and she's part of a group of over now 159 academics who have written an open letter to the government asking for major revisions to the so-called Fair Elections Act. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.